Imagine a country gives you the option of granting you its citizenship free of cost and time. Everyone would accept it. But how would you feel if I told you that this citizenship 5 years later, without you knowing, would include mandatory military service? Maybe you wouldn't take it, right? This is something that must be analyzed because obtaining a second citizenship is not something trivial. It's something that must be examined in detail in terms of taxes, obligation as a citizen, global mobility, freedom, and wealth. And there are 5 types of citizenship, 5 things that some countries do that might make you decide there are better options. For example, this is something very few people take into account and many don't even know whether they can renounce their own citizenship. What if countries change their rules at any time? What if they can increase taxes at any time? What if they impose measures you don't want to be subject to? Argentina has maintained this policy for a long time, whether you are a native or naturalized citizen. For some, this might seem like a benefit. They can take away your citizenship, because in Argentina it is considered a human right. However, if Argentina were to decide at some point to tax all its citizens, regardless of where they live, through nationality-based taxation, because it wants to recover part of the economy lost over the years, well, I don't think that's likely to happen in the short term. But do you know what could happen in 10 or 20 years? Me not. I personally know Argentina, I know the tax agency, I have been in Argentina. We have many clients who tell us they are way behind, that they don't even have access to certain types of information and there is no real tax enforcement. It's clear that if they were to implement something like this, they wouldn't have anywhere near the level of information the US has through FATCA. Still, for some people, it would be stressful not being able to sleep at night knowing you are not doing things right, and that at any moment they could come down hard on you. I mention Argentina because it's a destination where many clients either naturalize through residency or do birth tourism and manage to get the passport in record time. But of course, it's a variable that must be mentioned. There are other countries like France where sometimes it can be complicated to renounce citizenship. It can be a long process. Then there are others like Spain, where if done properly, it's quite effective and usually don't pose any problems. Let's get into a concept we have already mentioned: countries whose citizenship includes nationality-based taxation. This is the case with the US and Eritrea, although the real hardliner is in the US. If you are American, it doesn't matter where you live in the world, you must file a tax return if you meet the requirements. You also have to report your foreign bank accounts, your corporations abroad, and it doesn't matter if you don't spend a single day in the US. You are what they call a US person, and therefore you are and always be part of their tax system for life, just like anyone born or residing in the US. Of course, that doesn't mean you can't drastically reduce your taxes or even eliminate them if you move abroad. For example, American entrepreneurs running business in Dubai can indeed reduce taxes and pay very little, but it's still no fun having to report absolutely everything to Uncle Sam. So many people who want to be free in this sense or who don't think it's fair decide to renounce their US citizenship since they have a second passport from the Caribbean, Serbia, El Salvador, or any other country that offers freedom of movement. If Argentina implements a similar system, I'm telling you right now, 99% of people acquiring it wouldn't take it unless their current passport is so horrible that they have no other choice. We are already seeing how the European Union wants to implement it, with France leading the way, and don't be surprised if it's active by 2030. As I said, I don't think Spain has the absolutely capacity to detect every undeclared income stream people are hiding, but it's not pleasant having to spend your entire life hiding things and thinking you can do X with that money because otherwise they will catch you and uncover the evasion. But of course, taxes aren't everything in life. You also have to consider whether you want to be obligated to perform mandatory military service. It's not the same to have mandatory service as to be able to pay a small fee and skip it, or to be eligible for religious or spiritual exemptions. Some countries require only men to serve, Others require both genders. Some only require service if you are native born and not naturalized. Others require you to serve if you live there for a certain number of years. Some countries like Turkey offer citizenship by investment and don't require investors to serve in the military. But of course, your children, if not yet born, could be subject to mandatory service, which is something to consider when planning citizenship for future generations. Just like I would never in my life take citizenship from a country that is sanctioned or has a very poor reputation. There are countries whose passports aren't bad in terms of travel freedom, like Venezuela's, but I wouldn't touch them even with a stick. I think many people aren't aware of the problems they could face if certain institutions find out on you have that citizenship, because they will immediately see you as a high-risk individual. For example, holding citizenship from countries like Iran, Iraq, Syria, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, Ukraine, all of this can cause problems. In my other Spanish channel on YouTube, we have clients whose wife is Cuban, and they have told us about the insane number of issues she faced just trying to live a normal life like anyone else with a Spanish passport, as was her case, and that's a completely different reality. There are banks that automatically reject people from certain countries, including US citizens, due to FATCA compliance requirements that they don't want to deal with. Because if FATCA reporting is burdensome for individuals, you can imagine how brutal it is for institutions that must carry out due diligence on US citizens. There are also countries that may not be part of the so-called first world, and even though they don't have a bad reputation, institutions simply don't want to serve them because their reputation isn't on par with. To give you an idea, more and more Caribbean countries that offer citizenship by investment have stopped accepting Russian citizens, and virtually all have stopped accepting Iranian citizens because they don't want to lose their privileges by admitting profiles that are practically banned worldwide. You have already seen what happened with the Cyprus citizenship by investment program. If you can claim the citizenship of a country that could be viewed negatively by banks or governments in the future, you should think twice before doing so. Clearly, this only applies in certain countries. If you are Filipino and can claim Spanish citizenship, for example, do it. At this moment, it's one of the best passports, no sanctions, you won't be harassed, and the only downside may be future citizenship-based taxation, but aside from that, not much else. Another important point, some countries require you to renounce your previous citizenship in order to acquire the new one. And this is something I do not recommend unless you are absolutely sure, because your previous citizenship is so poor in terms of freedom of movement, nationality-based taxation or citizenship-based taxation, military service, or any other measure that's limiting your freedom. Not all countries require this, but there are countries with very strong passports, like Japan, where you cannot keep them if you acquire a second citizenship. That's not the case here, but imagine having to renounce your Pakistani passport to get maybe the Spanish one. Many people would leave the Pakistani passport behind, just like many Indians do, and climb the ladder through new citizenships. All these issues don't usually happen in most countries that offer citizenship by investment or by residency. For example, if you obtain a Caribbean citizenship, you won't pay taxes no matter where you live. If you want to renounce that citizenship, no problem, they don't care. There is no mandatory military service, and in some of these countries there isn't even a significant military force. These citizenship programs are designed to offer freedom and flexibility. I believe having 3 passports, one with great travel freedom, another to back it up, and a third as a plan B or plan C in case things go downhill. I think this plan is the best way to have true freedom, and not just for someone with €1 million net worth. Anyone can do this. It's just that if you are not willing to spend at least €100,000 on a passport, then you will have to trade your time for new citizenship. You decide how to play your cards. Just make sure you analyze each citizenship thoroughly, considering all its implications. You can fill out the form in the description, we will review your case, give you a call, or you can come to the office and we'll piece everything together in detail.